Hello and welcome to the news segment on HOMEF TV. I am Kome Odomo. First, the highlights. HOMEF exposes implications of GMOs on Nigerian food culture. Oilwatch conference looks beyond extractivism and colonialism. CAPA calls for effective policies on improved healthy diets for Nigerians. With conversations rising on the approval of genetic modified organisms in Nigeria, Health of Mother Earth Foundation, HOMEF, organized a conference on GMOs with the theme Beyond Propaganda, unveiling the truth about GMOs. The meeting was convened to explore the impacts of GMOs on Nigerians' food system, investigate and understand the implications, and critically expose the deceit and falsehood of GMOs. Our correspondent, Onome Etisuru, completes the report.
Pointing out the flaws in Nigeria's GMO laws, particularly the NBMA Act, and the influence of external entities in drafting these laws, stakeholders have called for a complete overhaul of the NBMA Act. The conference looked at the human rights perspective, emphasizing the fundamental right to life and the need to challenge the constitutionality of specific provisions in the NBMA Act, while charging Nigerians to be more vigilant about what they consume, as they call for a halt to GMOs in Nigeria until biosafety issues are resolved. The Executive Director of HOMEF, Dr. Nimo Bassi, emphasized the importance of reclaiming Nigeria's food heritage to achieve food sovereignty and security.
Genetic engineering or genetically modified organisms have no place whatsoever in fighting food insecurity in Nigeria. It's all a propaganda where people say that GMOs will feed the world. GMOs have been in circulation in the world since 1996, and yet hunger has not been reduced by the introduction. One major reason we don't have enough food, we have problem with food harvest in Nigeria, is insecurity. Because our farmers are not able to stay in the farm, especially in the northeast, in the middle belt, and parts of the south. Even the northwest, all across the country. Farmers are unable to stay on the farm because of insecurity, and harvests are purposely destroyed by some of these terrorists.
The keynote speaker, Professor Zacharis Anga Gundu, who addressed GMOs and food security in Nigeria, provided a historical overview of agriculture and its role in shaping human societies. He argued that agriculture has been a tool for manipulation and control, leading to increased diseases, population growth, and inequalities. Professor Zacharis criticized the narrative that GMOs are essential for ending hunger, calling it a lie perpetuated by corporations seeking control over seeds and food production. In a panel discussion, panelists stressed the sanctity of human life and the physiological effects of consuming GMOs, while highlighting the influence of funding sources on scientific studies and the need for unbiased research. Onome Etisuru for HOMEF TV.
Members of Oilwatch International held an annual retreat with the theme Beyond Colonialism and Extractivism, Energy Democracy and the Imperatives of a Just Transition. The retreat x-rayed current trends in extractivism and systemic push for hydrogen amidst energy transition discourse. This was an opportunity to learn from the struggles and enhance synergies to co-create the pathways to a future that promotes life and urgently halts fossil-driven disposition. The report. The retreat underscored the historical context of colonialism and extractivism, which has profoundly shaped local and global energy system. These practices have led to the widespread environmental degradation, social inequalities, and economic dependencies affecting us globally. The need to protect Africa and other countries in the global south from being used as testing ground, and the fight for the protection of Yasuni National Park, a campaign pushed by Action Ecological and Oilwatch members, is a testament to the power of collective effort in protecting the environment and livelihoods. Members of Oilwatch view democratizing and decolonizing energy framework as key to achieving equitable and socialized access to energy, prioritizing the people's need and the planet's integrity, and moving beyond the paradigm of corporate capture towards more equitable and just framework.
The transition for us in Africa should first and foremost be about connecting all the 1 billion people who do not have access to basic energy system, either for household use or even for local economic activities, because we must not allow this narrative that local economic activities are insignificant.
We need a change of our entire system. We need ourselves to define our system, and not for some ism, or not for some World Bank, or not for some external force to define our system. Energy for who is the big question we have to ask ourselves for in Africa.
Everybody is saying that we have to keep fossil fuels on the ground to fight the local problems and to fight climate change. On that time, 30 years ago, we already were asking that the only way to fight climate change is start to leave fossil fuels on the ground.
Community members call for an immediate halt to the pattern of commodification and extraction of natural resources with minimal regard for local ecosystem.
They have already destroyed the environment, and we also at the same time we are suffering, the global south is suffering from the impacts of climate change, the climate chaos. So what I'd like to say is that we can talk about the investment, just the investment, but it's important to see that the investment should come along with reparation and compensation.
Namibia has become the land of milk and honey, and the governments are very pro-oil and gas there, but the communities do not want oil and gas there. So we are going to work with the communities to not allow recon to drill in the Okavango, a very protected area, a very important site for the communities of Namibia and Botswana. So we're going to stand in solidarity with them. And we're also closely monitoring Total, who wants to exit South Africa, but they are really going deep into Namibia and to drill for oil and gas.
We have an explosive activity of oil and gas in our areas, where our oceans is now divided up into these blocks, and these blocks are now leased out to these multinationals like Shell, Shell and Total Energies, that is wanting to do the oil and gas explorations. And communities on the ground are dependent. They are fishing communities, they are fishing villages, and they are many times being harassed to be able to go to these meetings, to be able to say how we can put a stop to all of these oil and gas activities that is happening in our area.
With testimonies from comrades across Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and other parts of the world, it is pertinent to note that the issue of oil extraction and its effects is a global issue that has rendered many homeless and livelihoods impacted. Members of Oilwatch International come together to say that it is time to put a stop to the issue of fossil fuels around the world. I am Kome Ojomo, HOMEF TV. The Niger Delta region of Nigeria has been ravaged by environmental degradation, particularly oil spill and pollution, which has devastating consequences for women's health and livelihoods. The contamination of waterways and soil has led to increased incidence of waterborne diseases, respiratory problems, and reproductive health issues. The Women's Milk Tribunal is an initiative that provides platform for women to share their experiences and engage in decision-making process and leadership role in environmental issues. Esele Ojanelu has the details.
In 2023, Kebekasi Women Development and Resource Center led a research team to Otuabagi to check the impact of oil extraction on the health and socio-economic lives of women. The group took soil, water, and blood samples alongside questionnaires to carry out its investigation. The research presented revealed the danger that Otuabagi women are faced with, which led to initiating an environmental tribunal. The Women's Environmental Milk Tribunal witnessed presentations from 4 communities in 2 Niger Delta states affected by oil companies. In a case between Okwizi community and Ajip, Nigeria, Peace Mbewa, who represented the community women, recounted that Ajip has been operating in their land for decades and there has been no visible development project in the community.
Edeman is the second place that Ajip find oil. But since then, have denied women all their rights. They don't recognize women. Why women are suffering the consequence of gas flare that is causing climate change in Edema and the pollution and many other things. If you go to Edema now, if you see 10 women, 6 is having this itching, korokoro, all over their body. Even our children, even the men. This is the issue in Edema now.
Since 2013, all this thing happened in our community, at Oilwatch farmland. Since that time, the company did not come to clean the place till now. And that place had been like that till today.
After all evidence was tendered before the Chief Judge, Barrister Rosemary Dokumbo, she ruled that the case of Otuabagi has credence and adequate compensation should be awarded. The judge pointed out that the women have overwhelming evidence and their case has merit, but they require a professional touch to write a letter to NHRC and government regulatory bodies.
Now we have pictures, now we have voice mails and the rest of it. How do you present it in court? That's where Section 84 comes in. And then documentations. I noticed few things, they have it. They can say they feel it, but unfortunately there is no evidence to back it up. No documentation, unlike the last group that had at least beautiful impact assessments. That one can go anywhere. It cannot be faulted, as long as it is professionals tendering it. There are rules governing professionals coming to give evidence. Those ones, they have some latitudes. You can allow them.
In that forum, we had, I think, about 8 to 10 cases that were presented by communities. We had a case presented from Obele community, Iba community, Erema, Eastern Obolo in Akwa Ibom, and several other communities. It is an activity that is to encourage communities so that they don't keep quiet. There are critical cases that communities should actually ask for compensation or for damages. But because they don't know how to go about it, they keep suffering in silence.
The women from Eleme, Otuabagi, Rumekpe, and Ukozi communities call on the Honorable Tribunal to assist the community in getting justice and institute a legal case against the oil companies who failed in their responsibility to correct the abnormalities done to the Niger Delta women, and insist that these oil companies clean up their lands and provide healthcare services and other social amenities for the community. Esele Ojanelu, HOMEF TV.
The issue of GMO is a conversation that has been around for a period in the past months in Nigeria. On this premise, Health of Moderates Foundation, HOMEF, held its second judicial training meeting with over 25 participants, including judges, magistrates, lawyers, and academics from various states of the Federation. The meeting highlighted Nigerians' legislative power, but exposes concerns over the need for the implementation following the secrecy surrounding GMOs. HOMEF stressed that consent must be sought before implementing such products. Many participants queried the differentiation between fortified foods and GMOs, noting that fortification does not necessarily mean modification. Our correspondent, Onome Etisoro, completes the report.
In his opening remarks, the Executive Director of HOMEF, Dr. Nimo Bassi, underscored the pressing issue of GMOs in the nation and the alarming lack of awareness among Nigerians about their food. Bassi voiced serious concerns about the potential implications of GMOs on our health, environment, food sovereignty, and nation. He emphasized the immediate need for robust laws and regulations to guarantee the safety and protection of our health, environment, and food sovereignty.
Whenever they advertise GMO applications, we spend a lot of time, scientific partners spend a lot of time reviewing and writing detailed reports on why they shouldn't approve it. They don't even read those documents. Because we've now asked them, if you read them, publish your risk assessment. so that everybody can have access to it, so that people can read and see how you came to the conclusion, but they will tell you it's on the website. You go to the website, it's not there. Recently, we had a meeting like this. Then we sent a one-page communique to Nigeria Facility Management Agency for them to know what we discussed in our meeting. They wrote us a short letter. I said, thank you for the documents. Thank you for your email. The information I'm looking for is on our website.
A keynote speaker, Professor Tatfeng Mirabu, a biotechnology expert and molecular biologist, exposed the socio-cultural impacts of GMOs on the nation, including the controversial patents on GMO seeds, which often prohibit replanting or sharing of seeds, a practice alien to traditional agricultural systems. Professor Mirabu further likened the current situation in Africa to a laboratory, with Africans serving as both the technicians and test subjects under the supervision of external powers. Another speaker, Professor Adeoluwa, discussed Nigeria's food security challenges and explored various scientific solutions, including alternatives to GMOs.
Our food are under attack, not only from the security situation, but from these companies. We no longer now put preference on our food. There is a big scramble for Nigeria. Nigeria is a major target of food companies.
Several participants added their perspectives while lamenting that Africa is being treated as a dumping ground for low-quality products. They also expressed concern that Nigerian society is becoming more accepting of artificial or scientifically modified food. At the end of the meeting, several recommendations were reached, such as strengthening regulatory frameworks, increasing public awareness, educating consumers about the origins and contents of their food.
If we are having conversation about things that we consume, right, and then it is being shown that an agency that is ordinarily supposed to regulate it has not taken safety seriously, then I believe the courts have a responsibility to look at such matters very thoroughly. So I am advocating for a public interest disposition to keep it bordering on GMOs. My concern is that at the end of the day, right, both the executive, the board, the legislature, the judges, the lawyers, and everyone, they may also directly or indirectly be victims of GMOs.
We have conference, all Nigerian Judges Conference, organized by NGI. I will comment strongly that the organizers approach NGI. Those all Judges Conference comprise of state high court judges, selected Federal High Court, Court of Appeal, and even Supreme Court justices. All of us are usually there. So that's my recommendation.
Alternatives to GMOs were set to promote and encourage the consumption of traditional and healthier foods. Participants were enjoined with bringing public awareness to these alternatives through public campaigns and support for local food producers, as well as advocating for consumer rights so that consumers have the right to participate in food-related decisions, reject unhealthy options, and seek compensation when misled by deceptive labeling and false advertising. Onome Etisiro for HOMEF TV.
Thank you, Onome, for that report. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for a conducive and serene environment to carry out your research works and need the right content to be at your best? Are you a lover of academics and intellectual books? Do you seek proper works of research for knowledge enhancement? Or you want a place to read at your leisure? The HOMEF Library and Resource Center is the right place to be. With our well-arranged and fully stocked bookshelves, searching for your preferred genres and authors is made much easier than you could ever imagine. With our well-experienced librarians and guides, you've got a reading and research pleasure to catch up with. At HOMEF Library and Resource Center, Benin City, Nigeria, it is simply an unforgettable experience.
Welcome back. Still on food, we'll be going to Lagos. In a one-day capacity building program on healthy policy and food justice in Nigeria, the right to food as recognized in 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 25, was the major highlight that brought stakeholders together to discuss unhealthy diets, especially around ultra-processed food, as a worsening factor of non-communicable diseases in Nigeria. The event featured nutritionists and food experts, environmental, social and health activists, and youth groups from across the country who urged the government to implement policies to curb the spread of unhealthy diets. Our correspondent Mabel Obaseki completes the report.
Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa (CAPA) has called for implementing effective food policies to enhance healthy diets among Nigerians and reduce the country's burden of non-communicable diseases. The keynote speaker and director of the Earth of Motherhood Foundation (HOMEF), Dr. Nimo Basi, raised the alarm about Nigeria's food system while warning that the increasing presence of genetically modified organisms (GMOs) poses significant risk to human health, the environment, and our economy.
GMOs are not. Our main concern is that they are not a solution to food shortage in Nigeria. What our food, 70% of the food eaten in the world, the whole world, is produced by small-scale farmers, not by industrial farmers. And so government should invest in supporting small-scale farmers, building rural infrastructure, having systems of storage and processing of local foods, and making farmers able to get better income from their labors. We were demanding for a complete overhaul of the law on biosafety in Nigeria, the National Biosafety Management Act of 2015 that was modified in 2019. That law ought to either be completely abolished, abrogated, or deeply reviewed.
A wake-up call on the Nigerian government to look at some of these food policies, healthy food policies, to strengthen them, to begin the enforcement, and to always know that when you throw open our food system into multinationals, to GMOs, you are again affecting, the local communities, the healthy, the public health community, and as well the community livelihoods as a whole in Nigeria.
Other speakers describe ultra-processed food as industrial formulations, including substances not commonly used in culinary preparations, while emphasizing that healthy food is a human right and a social justice issue that must be upheld.
Greater exposure to ultra-processed foods was associated with a higher risk of adverse health outcomes. Different kinds of sugar, ultra-processed foods. One of that is the sugar-sweetened beverages. So why are we focusing on SLP? It's an ultra-processed food and it's been known to have significantly greater health risk.
So when you talk about food justice, it's really about the right to eat what nature wants us to eat. So you're talking about accessibility, affordability, availability of healthy and nutritious food in the country. You also talk about food that are culturally acceptable within the context.
Stakeholders further suggested that consuming sugar-sweetened beverages and unhealthy diet must be reduced to mitigate NCD. They urged the government to implement policies to curb the spread of unhealthy diets and support small-scale farmers that produce 70% of the world's food rather than relying on industrial farming and GMOs. The training noted that access to safe and wholesome food is a fundamental human right and should be protected. Mabel Obaseki for HOMEF TV.
Environmental activists and scholars have argued the need to transition from dirty energy sources to clean energy, with climate action becoming a fiction. These activists made their position known in a book launch titled The Geopolitics of Green Colonialism, Global Justice and Ecosocial Transition. The book, Green Colonialism, addresses the challenges faced in the Global South, which characterizes capitalism and increased control by the Global North. Our correspondent, Nena Abo, files in the details.
The book, Geopolitics of Green Colonialism,
Global Justice and Eco-Social Transition discusses how countries in the Global South have been turned into dump sites of energy transitions, with Africa becoming the destination of digital trash. It was exposed that green colonialism is grappling the world, especially in the Global South. Environmentalists explain that the view of Africa as a vast landscape with limitless resources to be exploited became rigidly entrenched in the colonial mindset.
The politics of green colonialism is very pertinent to Nigeria, and we thought we should have this conversation here, not just in the global north. We had the conversations in Latin America, and Africa is so critical. This whole ideas is also captured in a manifesto of the peoples of the Global South for socio-ecological transition, which needs to be heard by more people so that we can all work together.
I think we have to be aware that we are living a very unfair process under the banner of energy transition and response to climate change. Africa has a very little share of carbon emissions, and it's very strongly affected by climate change disasters. And we have to introduce much stronger perspective of global justice.
We have to foster the soft conversation around energy transitions. On the one hand, we are suffering the same impacts as sovereign countries. If you look to African countries and to Latin America, we are suffering the impacts of this new energy transition, this new geopolitical imaginarium that says that they need lithium to have their energy transition in the global north. And in this meanwhile, we are seeing the growing of inequalities, the growing of poverty in the global south.
When we come down the coast, Ghana, Nigeria, the Bight of Biafra, etc., all these places provide the labor to build up the wealth that the global north currently enjoys today.
It was stressed that it is essential to unmark the concept of green colonialism and the impact on countries across the global south, and for people also to understand its hypocrisy. The public have been charged to see climate issues as everyday issues, and they are inspired to take actions that keep their environment safe. The book presentation was attended by journalists, activists, scholars, researchers, and community members across Lagos, Nigeria.
Every one of us is impacted by extractivism. We are impacted by the very avaricious exploration of our environment. And sadly, governments all over the world are colluding with the multinationals. We don't have the government on our side. And so it behoves on all of us, because we have social media, we are all powerful in our various spheres, to challenge governments and to sensitize people who are not even aware of their environmental rights.
The ideas around socialism, even when we speak about it, there is a way and manner we attempt to hide around, bringing it forward and sharply posing socialism, scientific socialism, as the only way forward to the disaster that capitalism constitutes.
Emphasizing the need, for the media to hold people accountable for all these things. What questions do we ask, our ministers whose work relates to the environment, to mineral resources, and when things like collapse of minings happen, who do we hold accountable? What are they doing?
It was exposed that green extractivism do not address the root cause because they isolate the need for decarbonization from nature's metabolism. Nena Abo for HOMEF TV.
And that's the news on HOMEF TV. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Kome Odomo.